council meeting to order, June the 3rd, 2025, 7 o'clock. Is there any additions to the agenda this day?
Yes, 20 minutes executive session to discuss a non-elected personnel.
I'll make a motion to have a 20-minute executive session under the executive session part of the meeting.
Second.
To discuss non-elected personnel.
Got a motion on the table by Aaron Raines, got a second by Mark Bryant. All in favor? All opposed? That's 5 minutes. That's it.
I'd make a motion to add 1% sales tax under new business.
Second.
Got a motion on the table by Kyle Bunker, a second by Aaron Gleason. Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passes 5-0.
I'd like to put something underneath, underneath city clerk, in regards to the $250, mowing fee.
Motion on the table here, a second.
Oh, we can just talk about
Yeah.
underneath. We
Okay.
don't need a motion for that one.
Oh, my bad,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Any other additions to the agenda? Let it show there be no more additions to the agenda. Citizen comments, anybody got any citizen comments? Let's see any.
I just have one on behalf of somebody who called me that was,
Okay,
thought that the closing of the square was inappropriate. So I thought, I told him I'd bring it up for the wedding. So it's brought up, I told him we had permission for it. So we can move on.
okay. Move on to Ned Marks is here with the water well, explanation in your packet in your folder. Ned, I'll let you have it.
Okay, well, I've sent you a lot of information. Some of it's redundant, some of it's historical. Jason asked me to help out on trying to figure out what's going on with the plant after the beats or the media was exchanged. Didn't seem to be operating the way he thought it should be. And so in that process, we sampled the wells, and then I asked him about the bag filter, and was out there when they changed the bag filter out, and that's one of the reports that we're gonna talk about from Water Systems Engineering. What we're seeing is and I can pull all that out, you've got the reports. Yes,
That is it. Where is the bag filter?
it's in the plant. Inside the plant, it's a big round deal, about big around, about that tall.
Okay.
And it has several components or compartments in it that has a 100 micron filter bags, and that's what that picture of that bag is. That bag sits in a stainless steel basket. So that's what that's for, is to catch iron, scale, and it's doing that, but it won't stop the bacteria. The bacteria is developing based on what I'm seeing, it's developing in the pipeline and in the wells, and it's because of the degradation of the wells from corrosion. At well 6, we saw a lot of scale on the pipe coming out. That gets out in the pipeline, and because the pipelines are not chlorinated, then that scale, the iron bacteria just do their thing, laying in the bottom of that pipeline and start generating bugs. And the bag filters stop the scale, but it won't stop the bacteria. And that's that bacteria that gets through the system and starts attacking the beads or the media, and diminishes the effectiveness of the media. So that's one of the reasons they don't last as long as they should. The important thing I think that we're going to see here is, because we get 12 years out of the first round of media, but it took a while to develop that condition in the pipeline. Well, that condition's already there, so we haven't changed that, and so we're still getting the full-on attack of the iron and the bacteria into the media to start with this new batch, which does diminish the impacts of the media. Then we follow that up with the nitrates have gone up in the wells, so consequently the system has to run, which means means it's gonna use more salt, which means it's gonna put more water out in the lagoons. And as that continues to happen, then a number of things will occur. It'll be, you'll run out of lagoon, for one thing. And unless we have a miracle and the nitrates go down in the city wells, I don't anticipate that happening. But we do see, as we approach and we discussed the last time, as we approach the limits of the lagoon, getting rid of that salt water would be very expensive. Very expensive. And I don't know yet where we go. It may be out of state. Because we can't go to an oil and gas disposal well because it's industrial waste, industrial salt water. That would have to go to an industrial facility, commercial facility, class 1 disposal.
Let me ask you a question. So when you said the media, is that the same as the beets?
Beets, yes.
Okay.
beets, yeah.
And you had mentioned 12 years. Was
We have
that-
12 years out of the first round.
Okay, now we're on
We just got started.
7. Oh,
No, we looked at them at 7 years.
so, okay.
They were already starting to degrade at 7 years, and we looked at it then. And that's when we were having trouble with well 3, and we looked at well 3 degradation. What is happening there, it's not uncommon at all. We have low carbon steel casing that's been put up against stainless steel screen, and we get galvanic corrosion at that intersection. And what we typically see then is that first 5 to 10 feet of low carbon steel casing is impacted by that galvanic corrosion, which creates a food source for the iron bacteria, which they then start attacking the low carbon steel casing as well. And they will even build on stainless steel screen. And I've had some, couple of systems I've worked with that the iron bacteria was so bad it even ate the stainless steel screen.
Okay.
So then the well fails at that point in time. And the problem with well 3 is it's landlocked. You don't have any place to go there. I think it's doing the same thing at 6. We do have some opportunities to possibly move 6, but I would like to do the sampling of the wells again, as well as the GMD wells, any domestic wells we can find up in that area. And that would, I'd rely on Jason Curtis to get that done, as far as finding some locations so we could sample and make sure that that area is low on nitrates. If those wells are high on nitrates, there's really no sense even messing with the irrigation well, because we just draw it to us.
Okay, so as far as the private wells, are they less expensive to sample that opposed to just going straight to the irrigation well? I didn't understand.
Oh
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We're all they've got to do then is go up and get a sample off the well.
Oh, I see.
Off the domestic well.
Okay.
Lawn and garden well, whatever it is.
Mhm.
All we got to do is go get a sample off of that. To sample that irrigation well, we'll have to bring a contractor in. They'll have to run an eductor pipe down inside that well, and that's basically be 5 or 6 inch PVC pipe. We'll put an air line to that, and we'll airlift that water out of that well, much like a jet pump
Okay.
or a jet pipe on a mud system. So to do that, like I said, we'd have to bring a contractor in to do that, and then we could get an airlifted sample off of that well. So we would have that expense, and it's an expense.
So it's less expensive to do it the way you're proposing?
Yeah, I would start with the domestic wells first,
Okay.
and those should be done anyways to give us a better idea as far as the footprint of the nitrates in the aquifer. And if those north wells are already high in nitrates, it's really not an option to go to the irrigation wells,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Are
The
the domestic wells, I mean, they're probably pulling from 30 to 60 feet versus the irrigation wells probably much deeper than that, isn't it?
That's a good question, and some of the domestic wells will be in that 60 to 100 foot range.
Really?
But one of the things we find out with the irrigation well, and one of the issues that we have with well 6 and old well 4, is they're gravel packed up high. And even though the screen may not be up there, it is still hydraulically connected to the upper portion of that aquifer, and it'll just pull that nitrates down the borehole. So, yes.
So as far as back in, was it 2018 you did this test? The comparison
Yes.
was? I guess this is a question for you, Jason. Have we been doing all those recommendations that they recommended back then?
As in what?
As in what's listed in the paperwork? You had recommendations, this is.
Something that printed out water system engineering.
Yeah. I think it was the last one. Anyway, you had suggested in the 2018 report that you had for a comparison, those recommendations you
Right.
suggested.
Well,
My question is, have we done it, or have we not done it? And if we have not done it, is that the reason why we are where we are?
yes, no, they weren't done, and yes, that is.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of that is, the general thought was, and we've seen it in a multitude of other places, is, oh, you put a treatment plant in, it runs itself, it'll take
Okay.
care of everything.
All right, fair.
Well, it
That
doesn't.
that was my answer.
Yeah,
All right, so what would, I have a general understanding of this, very general, but what, so I think we need to go with listening to his plan of action to see if that well is even, that irrigation well is even a contender, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the last
And
thing,
that's the first
last
step.
thing I wanna do is spend a bunch of money at the irrigation well and find out that, hey, we can't use it. The other thing we don't know is even if we find good water at the irrigation well, we're up to the GMD and DWR giving their final blessing on whether we can even use that. And I found out just the other day that the GMD and DWR has now come up with another plan to be able to move water rights out of the Ark River Basin without costing the city or anybody else that wants to move a water right in, out of the basin area or out of the 2 mile corridor. That can be done without costing you water or a bunch of money. We still have to meet safe field criteria. We still have to meet spacing issues, but we have that away from town. We can't move really any closer to the creek. If they allow well 6 to go north by the irrigation well, basically they're looking at that as a wash because that water's already being pumped. And so they're not looking at that as being an additional threat. But if we can move any of that water, whether it's well 6 or well 3 or well 5 outside of that 2 mile radius, out of that 2 mile corridor, then that has the potential to do a couple of things. One, it has the potential to get much cleaner water, and we can minimize the usage of the plant. It'll take some serious hoop jumping through with KDHE. If we find good quality water, still send it to the plant, use it for blending, but be able to turn the plant off. Shut off the consumables on the salt and be able to eliminate that, which would be the ultimate goal because it's gonna reduce the cost to the city. These things are not going to get any cheaper to operate. And as that plant ages, we're seeing some real problems with getting materials to replace some of the stuff that's in them. Some of the equipment that's in them that's getting harder and harder to do and much more expensive.
Ned, is there any risks to the community as far as this bacteria is
No.
concerned?
No, good question. We don't see really any health problems associated with iron bacteria. There's lots of bacteria out there that we drink every day, but we don't have E. coli, we don't have coliforms. Now, I can tell you that we do have wells that have gotten so bad, the bacteria counts get so high that they will, if we get any kind of as the well kicks on, when it turns on and the water levels drop in the well, that pulls in air. And if there's any coliform or any E. coli in that air that's pulled into that well and gets into the system, we can have a heavy enough bacteria load in the wells that they'll start feeding there. So we do see that happen, but it's not very often. So, we have, a lot of systems that have iron bacteria in them. We can't eliminate them. We can control them, we can manage them, but we can't eliminate them. They're just too prevalent, too robust.
What is the nitrate levels right now?
Anywhere from 11 to 16, 17. So we're over the limit, and we've seen that was in the last report that I sent you. Last time I was here, we saw a fairly significant jump in the numbers, nitrate values on those wells. Now, that said, is that truly because of what's going on in the aquifer, or is it just what way it was that day? I don't know. That's the reason we want to continue with the sampling program and build that database to see how consistent that is. But since we've started doing that from the very get-go, they've not gone down. They've always gone up. And eventually you will get to the point where the plant will be running consistently or all the time in order to offset the nitrates.
Jason, do we still run well number 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Not all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and historically, that was a low nitrate well, but it's not anymore. And that was, one of the things the city has done right, there were a couple of recommendations that I made years ago, and that was to find other sources of supplies for the city parks. And that was done at Brown Park, and that was done down at Cornwell Park. And so what that did was that took them off of the system. So at Brown Park, we were, at the time, and the fertilizers usage has stopped, but at the time, city was pulling water out of the well at well 3 at Brown Park, sending it to the plant, pull all the nitrates out of it to send it back out to the park to water and fertilizer. So we got that stopped, and they put in another well at the city park, and that's a shallower well. And that's one that we probably ought to sample and just see what it's doing also, as well as Cornwell. See what the water quality is on those. But that takes that water usage off of the plant, that the plant doesn't have to try to offset.
Yeah.
So, we look for places that we can use that high nitrate water that we don't have to process. And some cities we've had pretty good luck with because they've had users that needed they could use high nitrate water, and it didn't make any difference. So we didn't run that water through the plant. So that's been done, Aaron, as far as that was part of it. But
I just asked because the 2018 report mentions in their recommendations that it's advised to decommission well number 3.
yeah, that hasn't been done, and it hasn't collapsed. So
And
that's
I was
a good
just
thing.
curious, and it said because of the structure and also because of the condition of the water.
Yeah, and that was gonna be one of the wells at that time we'd try to move outside of town, move that water right. Because you're landlocked, and we have to have a 100-foot sanitary easement, even though we don't on 5, we don't on 3.
So if we find out that the well is in the vicinity of well number 6, and if we test that irrigation well on Fairchild's ground, and it's not a viable solution, can we combine water rights from 3 and 6 into one outside of town?
Possibly, but I wouldn't recommend that.
You wouldn't?
I would, because you lose redundancy
Sure.
in the systems when you do that. And that's an extra step through the paperwork. One of the things that would be one possibility would be to move 5 to the southeast corner of the field, closer to the highway. That gets it out of the 2-mile corridor. Then possibly move 3 or 6 to 5, that water right to 5, and then see if we can find another location for better quality water outside of town. Maybe, without having any information and no test wells, that's the best I can tell you is maybe. But right now, the benefit to the city, if we can move those wells out of that 2-mile corridor without it costing anything on water usage or the water right. As far as costing you water, that is by far the best thing you can do.
Is that something you help facilitate,
Yes,
your services?
that's one of the things I do. I mean, we do it all the time. That's.
So what's the next step for us
Well,
to get this thing
the
going?
next step for the city, I think, is to do the sampling round again. Coordinate that with Jason. And I did talk to a fellow from K-State, professor up there that's doing a groundwater studies class. They've been down in this area doing a bunch of nitrate testing. They're going to be down next week. And I asked him if they would be interested in doing some testing for St. John. And he said he was pretty excited. Now, whether we get that done next week with them or not, it doesn't make any difference. So I would need direction from the council to go ahead and pursue that. And they're gonna do they'll do the sampling and they'll do the analytical work. Which, you know, we're kind of under their thumb to a certain extent, but if they're willing to do that, that would be a big help as far as eliminating some of the costs there. And nitrate samples aren't expensive, $12, $15 roughly. I think, is that what they were, the last rounds of samples we got from
I think it's around
Yeah.
20.
20? Okay.
So I
But
thought,
it's not uranium, and that's good, because those are expensive. They're 500.
so I thought we were good to go to get a contractor and pull a sample off that irrigation well. Is your recommendation now different? Because I thought we had consensus to go ahead and do that.
Yes. And then we got permission from GMD5 to utilize one of their wells, and then, but we didn't, that was before the meeting we had with DWR and GMD5, but we never got oh yeah, go ahead, we'll approve that. We got a maybe.
I thought we got an approval to test the water.
Yeah, we got an approval to test the water,
On
but
our
we never got,
Yeah.
you know, they never gave us,
Well, they
Any
weren't going to
indication-
give us permission to move there until they knew that there was water that was good.
yeah,
So it was kind of a chicken and egg.
yeah.
So
And
we
I'd be
had a
real-
consensus as a council to just spend the $5,000 or whatever it is to get a contractor to pull a sample.
I'd pull the surrounding samples first. Yeah,
Okay.
and if those surrounding samples are high, then use that money to look for another location. Because if those are high production well, like 6, we'll just pull them to us. That's not uncommon. That's what we call the area of influence for that well, and anything that's in that area of influence and the zone of contribution for that well, we will just pull to us. It's a pretty common phenomenon we see with any of the contaminations that we have, whether it's saltwater or nitrates or carbon tet, any of those. We worked enough with fertilizer plants that once we shut the city well off, then that plume moved away from the city well. But as soon as they turn the city well back on, it pulls it right back to them. Takes a couple of days, takes a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, but it's going to come back. And that's bad part is you go to corn, no big deal. You know, we trade, no big deal. Corn don't care, but KDHE frowns on sending high nitrate water to town. And your limit used to be 20, and now it's 10. And unfortunately, we don't have a way of fighting that system. So other than treatment or new source of supply. And even though there is a cost to bring that new source of supply to town, your O&M costs for that plant every year would cover a lot of that in a few years' time. You know, I would suspect, without digging into the numbers, you're probably looking at $40,000 to $60,000 a year just in O&M costs. Maintenance and power, salt. That doesn't take long, and you can buy some, plus your fees that you're gonna have to set back for the next round of media. Cause that's gonna have to be changed out again. And as the nitrates continue to go up, that then adds to that cost as far as to the life of the media. If we weren't sending iron bacteria to it, that media would probably, I think, last longer. There are ways we can treat that, but we have to be very, very careful doing that, because sometimes the treatments, if we don't manage that treatment correctly, basically melt the media and make it useless. You know, I don't want that.
So what do we need to do, or Pam, anything with the council to get, we wanna go
Well,
with
right now,
testing the surrounding?
Jason will have to go around and test all the surrounding well, it sounded like.
Do we need to get permission from
Yeah,
the
we need
owners?
all our permission for that.
So
Do
my
you have a well
recommendation,
right there? You have a domestic well?
Yeah, I've got three, I think, 3 or 4.
the approach I would take is let's sample the domestic wells and the GMD well. If those come back good, then let's look at the irrigation well. If those come back bad, then we need to look at other sources.
Where is the GMG well?
It would be southwest of, or southeast of the irrigation well site. There's a road that goes just past Bob's shop. There's a road that goes north up to a house. It's halfway up that road. Actually, it's right next to a ground bed.
It's just, yeah.
Can you send me like an area that you want us to sample in an email so I can maybe have a letter asking permission to go in ready sent to those owners?
Yeah, cause if we could send it this week, and if those guys from K-State are coming next, and we already have permission to test wells. then
Well,
if they
we
wanna
can,
do it here,
and we
then
can,
they
if
do
nothing
it.
else, we can go ahead and have them sample the city wells and the city's monitoring wells at those sites. And that would go a long ways.
Yeah.
So that would be an opportunity, but I'll have to get with them and see how well that Matthew Kirk is who we'd be dealing with. He's got a bunch of students that he's running out of Barton County and Dodge City Community Colleges. And this is one of the things that they're doing, is trying to get people trained to be able to do some of this stuff and
Okay.
look at these things. So, and nitrates is a issue. They're looking at a lot of south central Kansas. It's been studied a long, long time. And the biggest problem we have with it is we know it's there. We know it's going on. Nothing effective is being done to stop it. That's the problem. We were able to get it stopped at Cunningham because the city was the offender. You know, they were the ones fertilizing the football field. Well, this has got to stop. And then when you mow that grass, you're going to haul that off because that's 25% of the nitrogen moved back to the field. So we were able to manage that nutrient at that site, but we have a difficult time getting our neighbors to do that, especially our urban neighbors. I know we've got city wells here in town that will break 20 on nitrates, and it's just strictly because of fertilizer. And we've got, we do see it associated with ag as well. And somebody said, well, what do you want to do? Quit fertilizing? Yeah, that's how we stop it. Well, do you know what that costs? Not $4 million. Is there a cost to do that? Sure. We looked at a site up in northeast Kansas, talked with the owner or the ag producer, and I said, city owns this ground that they lease back to you to farm. What would it cost to not fertilize this ground? What do you think that would cost you in production? And he said, well, that cost me $40,000. I looked at the city guy, I said, that won't cover your O&M costs for the first year. And it won't cover hiring another operator, another class 2 operator. it sure won't cover that.
Okay.
They went ahead and put in a treatment plant. And the liners got shot before they even got it up and running, which I thought was pretty sad. That's a bad deal because the bad part is when the liners leak, that salt water is gonna be a real problem. Everybody said, well, you don't like salt water. No, it is what it is. We've already got enough cases in Kansas where we're dealing with saltwater contamination, primarily off of old oil field brine disposal ponds. You know, that was a common practice, and we're paying for that. We've got some areas that we can't do anything with it. I've got a city that's already lost one well, about to lose another one due to that practice. And not only is there a saltwater component to that disposal, but there's also a hydrocarbon component to that salt water when it's thrown out in that pit. And it's that hydrocarbon component works its way through the soil profile, and when it does, it creates a reduction zone reaction in that soil profile, and then it starts releasing the arsenic. And that's one of the city wells was the excessive arsenic. Then it also starts generating a lot of bacteria. So if we can, we can do by the ground. Historically, we didn't recommend that, but right now it's my recommendation on a lot of this stuff is the cities or the rural water districts need to buy that ground so you can manage it, just like you have out here at wells 7 and 8 and the plant. The city owns that ground, and they stopped the fertilizer usage on that with the ag producer, and the nitrates in the shallow water in the first year were cut in half. So one of the things we need to do is resample those and just see where we're at, so we know it works.
Okay. Well, you've given us a lot to talk about, and I'm sure
And
we will get
the important thing
back
is
with you.
that ground is not out of production. It can still be utilized. There's been some people try to do things with Nature Conservancy. CRP is an option. Anything within 2,000 feet of a public water supply will automatically qualifies for CRP. Historically, we'll see where that ends up now, but really limits of what you can do. You can't do anything else with it other than CRP. Nature Conservancy doesn't want anybody messing with the ground after they take it over, so that limits production. But there's a lot of things that can be produced off of that ground that aren't an impact or a threat to the water supply and actually will help clean it up.
Okay.
But it has to be done in order to do that, and we've got to take that step.
Any other questions, you guys?
I'll be in
Comments?
touch.
Yeah, get a hold of the homeowners and get permission, and then
Well, Ned, thanks for,
A lot of information. I get
no,
that.
it's, I appreciate it,
We
and
can,
thanks for
we can,
coming out.
you know, if you've got a couple of 3 or 4 more hours, we can. If you wanna get into the weeds, we can.
Let's
but-
leave this as a good second date, okay?
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah,
All right.
let me know.
Thank
We'll be in
you
touch.
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ned. Okay, any more discussion on the water well testing? Council? No?
Just me personally, we gotta go with his recommendation,
Move forward.
I think.
Okay. At this time, we'll, leave the, council or the regular session
I'd
and
make,
go into a public hearing.
I'd make a motion to adjourn regular council meeting and go into the public hearing for 521 East First Avenue.
Got a motion on the table here, second?
Second.
Second by Aaron Raines, motion by Aaron Gleason. Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passes 5-0. Regular council meeting is recessed into a public hearing for 521 East First.
Okay, I provided you guys with the timeline of the violation for this property, and it doesn't look like the owner is here today to contest the violation, so I would like your recommendation to move forward with second resolution being drafted and will be presented to you at the next council meeting to condemn that property.
You need a motion or just
Just
consensus?
consensus.
Just
okay.
consensus right now, and then we'll make a motion when the resolution is ready.
Yep.
Yep, that's my consensus.
Yes.
Okay.
All in agreement? We're all in
That's
agreement.
all I needed.
Let it show that, there was nobody here to represent the private 521 East First, that, consensus of council, we move on.
I'd make a motion to adjourn the public hearing for 521 East First Avenue.
Second.
We got a motion on the table and a second by Mark, all in favor? All opposed? Passes 5-0. We're back in regular council meeting. Did I do that right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, like you did, so.
Consent agenda, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of regular council meeting of May the 20th of 2025. Can I have a motion?
We make a motion to approve regular council meeting minutes, May 20th, 2025.
Got a motion on the table by Mark Bryant, I hear a
Second.
second? And a
Second.
second by Aaron Raines, any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed, passes 5-0. I'd entertain a motion to approve the appropriation ordinance, 060325 AP in the amount of $64,819.67.
Make a motion to approve appropriation ordinance number 060325 AP in the amount of $64,819.67.
Got a motion on the table, did I hear a second?
Second.
And a second by Aaron Gleason, motion was made by Mark Bryant, any more discussion? Huh?
Aaron Rain.
Aaron Raines, I'm sorry.
I just assume you get that right when you write it down.
Any more discussion, all in favor?
All in favor?
All opposed, passes 5-0. Excuse me,
You're
what was
fine.
that?
It's all right. We're all gonna get there.
Moving on, electric department, Curtis,
I have nothing.
council have anything for Curtis? Moving on.
I don't.
Water department, Jason?
I don't have nothing on the water, on the streets, for next council meeting, I'll have a report for the street work that will be coming up for you guys to look over, for chat and everything, 'cause we have a little discussion on that, and I'll have you guys go over that, so. Look forward to that next council meeting.
Is that, on the same topic, but to you, is that what we had planned for last year's budget, as far as just keeping things at a minimum?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for raising the baby swing, Cornwell, whoever did that.
Oh, yeah.
It works
that's
well
good.
now.
Any other council members got anything for Jason? We just, fire, police chief, Mike, you got anything?
Nope.
Anybody got anything for Mike?
I wanna take Tori off there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant to do that and I keep forgetting to, so.
Fire chief, Mike, anything on the fire side?
Nope.
Nope. City clerk, Pam.
I would like to see when you guys want to have a budget workshop. I have to, if we are going to exceed the R&R rate this year again, then I have to notify the county clerk by the 20th of July. So we're not gonna get our assessment from the county until the 15th of June, so we have from the 15th of June until 20th of July to have the budget workshop to see if we wanna raise it, we wanna stay where we're at, or how do we wanna proceed? Do you wanna have it at like the regular council meeting? Do you want a special council meeting to have that?
They say the sooner the better. Just
We'll
to
have
get
to,
it done.
yeah, we'll have to wait. The next council meeting is on the 17th of June, and we would be just getting that assessment from the county, so I don't think that the accountant's gonna have enough time to provide us with information to see if we wanna raise or we wanna stay. So it'll have it to be like between that council meeting and the first meeting in July,
24th.
July 1st.
July
Uh,
1st.
Do you wanna do a special one, or do you guys wanna do it at the city council?
It doesn't matter to me
Historically, it's a
either way.
lot to do, and it's better to do a special meeting
Right.
Okay.
than what I've experienced. It just
Right.
it's a lot
It's
in one
long.
night.
Yeah, it's very long, yeah.
So do you wanna, the 24th, is that following Tuesday, is a week enough time for her, or
It should be, yeah.
do you wanna see if it works for her?
Yeah, throw me some dates and I'll check with her, and then I can send out a packet, and then we can set the date at the next meeting. So just give me some dates that you guys have in mind. Would work best. I should-
Try for that 24th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
the
try for
24th sounds good.
It's a Tuesday.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
or it could be or Monday's good for you guys?
So can you give me another option just in case the 24 doesn't work?
Well, I just realized I'm out of town that week, so
Of the 24th.
23rd to 30th. But we'll see, let's just shoot it and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Alright. Besides that, I don't have anything unless you guys have, questions on my report.
On the code violations report,
Mm-hmm.
I had a citizen ask me if, I guess there's a van, that they've noticed that hasn't moved since October.
Yes,
Um,
we notified the police department, and
Okay.
there are, since we don't have record of when it was moved, so
Yeah.
we're kinda
So we're
like,
gonna watch it, like,
yes.
set the date and watch it.
yes,
Cause they just mentioned that the tag was probably out of date, probably wasn't insured, it hasn't moved for 9
Yes.
months, and
yeah,
So.
we just,
they were concerned about it.
right, yep, and I think I'll get with Mike tomorrow, see where we're at on that one.
Okay.
So,
One thing I'd like to ask you about, not last meeting, but the one before, we didn't get an Eco-Devo report for the end of the month. So then last month, we got one 2 weeks late, and then this month, we don't have one. So is he changing the date?
no, so I tried to aim it to have him submit the report for our second meeting of each month. But
Okay.
sometimes he's away from at conference, or, doing different things that he couldn't get to me. But I will keep on him to make sure we get it every,
Because my question is, maybe you can ask him this, since he's not here. A month and a half ago, he said he had to get those last two rented out before he got the next, I'll use the term allotment of money to carry on the next two
Right.
projects. Do you know if he got that?
yes,
I mean, they're rented.
yep,
No,
all of their
it's
houses.
rented, but did we get the money?
Yes,
Okay.
the constructions of the two houses by South Pearl Street, it's already started,
Okay.
so, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
That's my question.
I wanted to talk about something that a couple of constituents had spoken to me about, and that was the $250 fee for mowing a lawn at a minimum of 1 hour. I explained to him the reasoning why we did it as a deterrent for repeat offenders who constantly were waiting till the very last minute, and sometimes not even that, to get their lawn done. One of the things that I said I would ask council is, and I've talked to Pam and Bob and Sarah were there, would a list of lawn mowers here in town, would that be suitable to put in a letter when somebody is in violation, to let them know that they need to get their lawn taken care of within a certain period, as we've always done, but they could call them and get them someone to do their lawn for less than $250. Now, Pam had said that it wouldn't be our responsibility to collect that money from the people, and I agree with her. I think it would have to be something that the person offering or doing the service would have to collect, and I would think that there would be no service unless they get paid, because they would probably be dealing with people that we deal with quite a bit, and they have a tendency not to pay or wait for a long time, and then the city goes and mows it, and then they complain. So I don't know what anybody else thinks about that, but it's something.
I mean,
Well, I think they could go buy a mower for $100.
Not everybody
Not
can.
have a,
Not everybody can afford a mower even at $100. And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
I just think if we start, I mean, is this gonna happen if we have a towing or vehicle violation? Do we need to give them tow truck company? I mean, where is it gonna stop?
I do agree, because that put more work into our office as far as keeping track of the list of who's mow and who's not, if this company is full and not taking any more lawns. It's already taken quite a bit of time to find a property owner, send it certified, and
Right.
all of that stuff,
Right.
and my office is open 8 to 5. All they have to do is call. Like, it's just, we work with people as much as we can. As far as if you need more time, go ahead, and just don't abuse, the time that I'm giving you extra. We try to keep our ears open as far as who's mowing and who's, like, taking care of yards for elderly for free and stuff like that. And we try to give those information out, but I have to be honest, I do not want to keep track of the list of who mows and who's not.
Yeah, I think it's a
That's
good.
understandable. I think, I don't want to put any more work on this office than necessary. So yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think it's
sorry.
a good idea in theory,
Right.
but I think we send a certified letter. The city office number, whether it might
It's
be on the
there,
letter.
yeah.
They could call the city office and say, "Hey, I really don't want to pay $250. Do you know any mowers?" And Pam would be glad to tell them a few names in town. Like, it's a good idea in theory, but it also doesn't. It takes almost zero effort for them to get that information today,
Right.
without adding it to the letter.
Right.
And that, I don't know. That's
Yes,
just.
it's just part of owning the property.
Well,
You know it has to be mowed within a reasonable time.
Oh,
so you
absolutely.
Get it lined out, whether it's yourself, a company, or pay the $250 for the city. I guess is how I feel.
Somebody like me, I'm physically incapable of mowing my own lawn. So I have Levi Miller doing my lawn, and he does a pretty good job, and he does it twice a month, which is great. I can afford him. Not everybody can afford what he charges, and which, in my opinion, is not very much. It's better than $250, But I get what you're saying. But I thought, it might be, something to consider. But you bring up some good points. So yeah.
And I do have a couple of people that are willing to help those that are disabled, elderly, for free. All they have to do is they need to let us know if
Right.
they're ready to get a letter. If you can pass that word along,
I
I'll
will.
be glad to talk to them about that.
I will.
And
I'll do
these
that.
people are great.
Okay, excellent. I'll do that. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? We'll move on to City Attorney Danny.
I don't think I have a whole lot this month. Talked to Mr. Wentz, he's open to getting a written agreement done, we'll get that drawn up and probably have you guys look at it first and then get that sent to him. That's-
No, what's that for? Just to get in and look, or is that to get the
No,
property
that-
over
Transfer
That's
over.
to agree to transfer the
Okay.
property over.
by October?
Yeah, he's still got that on it. He says he's got personal property of his and he'll have it out by then, agree to donate the windows, that sort of thing, so.
Okay.
he got it.
So do you wanna prepare that, and then we have a land bank meeting to approve that agreement? Is that how
That-
you think it should?
That
be?
would work, yeah.
So is that something you wanna do for the next meeting, or push it to July?
When's your land bank meeting?
Well, we just schedule them as needed, and
Okay.
usually we schedule them before our regular council meeting, like at
Okay.
6:30 or 6.
I think I'm gone, we're taking vacation the week of the next council meeting. I can have that agreement to Pam before then to look at if you guys want, or if you wanna push it to July, I can be around to answer questions on it too.
I mean, if we're not taking action till October, I think we could wait until the month of July to
Okay.
set that, so.
Is the action gonna wait till October, or are we gonna write the agreement
I
to
guess.
put in place so
yeah, I
that
guess,
at
yeah.
October it would change?
Sure, I guess it would be in place, yeah, effective October one. Yeah.
And Kyle mentioned October, and you've mentioned it last meeting, I think.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning for October? Was there any reason given?
That's the date that he picked,
So just out of the air, apparently.
as far as I can tell.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah,
curious,
I've
okay.
asked him that, and
Okay,
that's about the answer I get.
gotcha.
He's been pretty receptive, so.
Okay, thank you.
So will you, July, would that be July first?
July 1st would be our first meeting.
Plan on a land bank meeting that
6 o'clock.
6:30 is
6:30.
probably be enough, if that's our only topic, that'd probably be enough time.
That was what date again?
July 1st.
July 1st, okay.
Okay, I'll send.
Anything else, Dan?
Followed up with tried to follow up with the county again regarding getting reimbursed for Patrick Piper's training expenses. Haven't got a call back from them yet, so I'll keep pushing on that. They'd agreed to pay the bulk of them, and I think we were okay with that, so just getting that finished and getting that reimbursed.
Council, got any questions for Danny? Under old business, I think Pam had it in her clerk, or in the report that, easements have been in place.
They said
And
for
fine.
bid.
Bid's gonna go 26th,
Yes, that's when we're gonna, that's the
That's the
deadline.
end of it,
Yep,
yeah.
that's the
and
deadline.
the fountain, we haven't heard anything on the fountain yet.
No, we can't do anything until the end of the season. So, I did talk to Ryan Russell today. He have offered an idea of putting the fountain into the historical society. You know, it's one of those sites. With that come a lot of opportunity for grants to repair the fountain. Apparently there's a lot of expert in restoring and restorations and that kind of work within that organization, that he said that it might be beneficial for us to maybe look at it, maybe try to get it registered. The fountain, the church on the hill, it's a good candidate for that, but I didn't have enough time to talk to him more about it. I thought, it couldn't hurt to look into it and try, and if there's a grant that will let us restore that fountain and not having to spend our money, why not? So.
We, Ryan had a meeting to begin a Stafford County Historical Preservation Group that I went and attended, and that was brought up about the fountain, so it's probably where it came from, because he said he'd look into it. I think it's a good idea if we could get anything for it.
Yeah.
As the preservation group continues, I'll be a part of it, and I'll do my best to bring to council any information that we get. I'll pass it on to Pam, and she can pass it on to the rest of you, so we'll know what's going on and what's coming down the pike for what Ryan wants to do with preserving buildings and sites within St. John and within Stafford County. So.
Good, so I don't have to do it.
Anybody got anything else under old business, new business? I'll entertain a motion for, talk about the 1%.
We've already
Okay.
passed that, right?
Yeah.
For the to talk about it?
Yeah, you just talk.
I don't know, I guess if you pay attention to the school, stuff at the school, they're looking at a school bond for improvements to the school. Basically how it's worked, Aaron and I are on the facility committee. The school board formed a separate committee to, we
Discuss
toured
needs and-
toured the school, look at needs, and then we looked at basically tried to trim it down to a possible bond that could, be put on the ballot in November. One of the things that we are looking at, would be 1%, passing 1% sales tax to help repay the bond.
Basically to transfer the obligation from property tax and put a little bit of obligation onto sales tax. And the general idea of that is that some of the sales tax that will be generated to help pay for that bond issue will come from people outside of St. John. It'll come from mostly St. John residents, but people passing through, buying stuff at the grocery store or eating at Squeaks or whatever. There's a little bit that will be transferred into a use tax versus you own property and you'll have to pay. It changes the mill levy by a few points if they get a 1% sales tax.
How much is the bond that you're looking for?
They're looking.
It hasn't passed yet.
Yeah, the school board has not approved the number to move forward. Looking at that, maybe their meeting in July. Is that how you
Yeah.
understood it?
Yeah, their first meeting, or their only meeting, I guess they meet once a month.
Yeah,
Their
July
meeting in July is
14th,
when
I
they're gonna
think.
vote to pass or not pass
But
the bond
it's
issue.
looking at between, just call it 15 and 20 million,
Yeah,
probably in the middle somewhere there.
yeah.
I mean, it's.
It seemed like they
15,
were
20 million for the bond. Okay.
total, for the bond issue. And I think they were looking at 25 years.
Yeah.
But that's all not been passed yet, so stuff could change there.
So what issues did you come up with that needs to be done?
The whole school. I mean, yeah, that's a loaded question.
I haven't been there for a
I
while.
mean, where
but
do you
it's-
start?
Classroom sizes.
Yeah, so it would be a lot of remodeling and with some additions is what I'd call it.
Yeah, I
Some
think there
new
was,
elementary with
It's-
a lot of remodeling in the high school.
again, the last plan we looked at, there was a lot of, it depends what the board decides to pass, because it's all recommendation from the facilities committee.
Yeah.
Call
the
the
last-
There's two of you, or more than?
Oh,
one?
there's
It's a
20.
group of
Oh,
15,
there's
it's
15.
a group, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a few people. Were there any, I mean, I've seen it, but things may have been maybe different now, but were there any issues in the junior high side over where the science and the industrial arts was? Because there used to be some, but
The majority of that is gonna be untouched, because that's kind of the best area of the school.
The newest.
It's the newest part of the school.
it's new, but it does have issues. But yeah, you're right, it is the newest
So
part.
as far as like grading out the school and what needs it the most, it's graded pretty low.
So they started this, and it was before Aaron and I were involved. They did a
2 years ago.
survey 2 and 3 years ago,
Right.
and went through the needs. And when we started, when we took from the survey and plugged in, if we did everything, wasn't it like 35 million?
I
Like
think-
something that was.
Yeah, it was like
just-
39.
Yeah.
39 million would fix every issue that was found.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of disheartening at step one, but I think they came up with a decent plan to
That
get
was 3 years
the
ago?
majority.
That report?
The survey.
The survey,
Yeah, and then they kind of paused it with the Quivira water situation. And then it's kind of resurfaced.
So the biggest, I think some of the bigger points on what will happen is connecting the school to the library so that kids don't have to leave the building so that's part of the new addition would be to the south to connect the library to the rest of the school. Having safety corridors at the entrances, so there'd be like a vestibule and you check in through the office, so increasing just school safety.
So you're looking at from the school elementary side to the library, and where they're going to connect, or where the district office is at, or where I don't see any other area that. But
So all
It'd
that.
be
goes-
in between, so north of the library to the new elementary school would be
So the
connected.
early ed building, there'd be new classrooms between the library and the early ed
And then
building.
a hall.
and that
then-
gap between the early ed and the library.
And
Yeah.
then the
Nice.
new district office would basically be the curve,
Oh, okay.
kind of where
Mhm.
just it would extend out.
Right.
So there'd be a skinnier sidewalk there.
That's
and
great,
we'll
I think
tie
that's,
all that.
I think that's a great idea,
It'd be a
especially
new-
for the kids when they have to trudge over there during the winter, and then they're walking around with flip-flops and shorts and complaints. Yeah.
Yeah, a new kitchen that would not be in the same room as I mean, it would be connected to the cafeteria, but it would be separate.
Oh, wow.
And there's, I mean, I think for what the need is, it's a decent plan. But again, it hasn't passed, so some things could change. 'Cause that's
So let me ask you this, so we're mentioning this now, just get it in our head. that-
Yeah, just to start
Yes.
thinking
And
about
when
it.
does this, if they pass this at the school, then if this develops, what timeline are we on? To get
So the idea would be it would go to a vote in November
Okay.
for the bond as well as the 1%. The way I understood it, and Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, the school board is interested in the, I guess, outlook from the council on what they're gonna pass. Is that how you understand?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it goes to, our job as a council is we can vote to put it on the ballot in November to add a 1% sales tax for the bond issue. Now, I'm not super well versed because I first heard of it today, but there's, in the state of Kansas, cities can pass up to 2% in a general sales tax and then a 1% special sales tax. And a special sales tax has to be renewed every 10 years, but a general sales tax, you can put the limit when you set the ballot question. And so we can discuss what, as a city, we want to do, what would be more appropriate, but from the school standpoint, they would prefer to have the question be for a general 1% sales tax that would state the percent of that sales tax that would go specifically to the bond issue, and that it would expire when the bond expires. So you would, their preference would be that the question would basically read that, do you approve of a 1% city sales tax that 90% of goes to the school bond issue for school improvements to expire in 25 years or whatever that date is, so that it's guaranteed through the life of the bond. If we choose to go the special route, they would be guaranteed that money for 10 years, and then the city would have to repass it, or the mill levy would jump after the 1% goes away, because the bond issue would still need to be paid for. So then it would go back to the property tax, that extra that's missing from the 1%.
And the school's ready to possibly pull the trigger pretty quick? Depending
Well,
on-
it has to go on the ballot in November.
Okay.
Yeah, I think July is the latest they can vote on it to get on November. Is that
Right.
how you understood it?
Yeah, so they're, basically the school's timeline is, they're meeting next week. They're going to hash out more of what needs to be in the bond issue and what doesn't, come up with a more set budget. And then their plan is to vote in their July meeting whether or not to put it on the ballot for the bond issue. And then their request to us would be that we would vote in our second meeting in July to put the 1% on the ballot or not. Because the county clerk needs to know within a certain amount of time to be able to put it on the ballot. So ultimately, both cases, it's up to the general public. It's just whether we're willing to put it on the ballot or not.
Well, something to think about between now and the next meeting.
And I mean, just for my 2 cents, I personally, I think as a parent to young kids, I think it's needed for the school. I think it's desperately needed. The plan in place is to make it a 50-year plan, basically make the school good for another 50 years. I think we have to do something. That's my opinion of it. And then from a property tax and sales tax standpoint, putting, even though it's a very small amount of the total bond, having a 1% sales tax that goes to that, I'm a big fan of, just because it defers some of that cost away from solely property owners and having people come through town, adding a little bit to make our school better. If the Port Authority brings some businesses in town, that brings in more sales tax revenue, that reduces the bearing it has on our property tax paying citizens in town and in the district. And I the more that we can put on use that you can control where you buy your groceries. You can control some of those things if you feel like you don't want to pay for that, but you can't control necessarily your property tax. So if we can reduce a little bit of that, I think it makes sense. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, the building definitely needs work. Worked there for 17 years, and I watched the school do its best to maintain everything, but it was only patchwork. So I agree. I think it's desperately needed, especially for our students, because there's a lot of things in there that are pretty bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
It's just a challenge to
Right.
put enough money in your capital outlay every year to keep it up, I guess is what I think. And yeah, once I didn't realize the need until I took the tour. And they're gonna do is tours over the summer, right?
Yeah.
Is that how so open to the community to be able to go and look before the vote? Or if it goes on the ballot.
Yeah, if it goes on the ballot, there's going to be a big campaign to just notify the public of this is why it's needed. I mean, this is the future of our town, is our youth. And
So they'll do a campaign after it goes on the ballot, if it goes on the ballot?
yeah, I mean, they're not going to do a campaign unless the school
Right,
board
right.
says, yeah, we want it on the
Right,
ballot.
figured.
Not a
Yeah.
lot's gonna happen until the school
Right.
board approves it.
Okay.
Yeah. But once they do, I mean, it'll be a big push for the 4 months before the vote.
It's a big ask of our community and our taxpayers, but I think for the good of the town, you have to keep your school in good condition as well.
Investing in the school is a good thing, and I think a lot of people in this community will definitely agree with that. There will be some that won't, but I think the majority of people in St. John will support it. That's what I believe.
I've got a question that is like a hot button. So talking to Todd Wyckoff months ago, he was talking about combining high schools. So did that committee take that into consideration? If you're gonna be putting this money in there and then for 50 years and maybe in 15 years, this is something to think about.
I think there was an attempt to visit with Maxville.
And
and I
that was a
think
couple
they
years ago.
visited,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, they
there
talked to their
was
school board.
I
not
think
a lot
there-
of
I think it was
interest.
both Maxwell and Stafford, wasn't it, at one point, that they were talking, all 3 schools were talking about the whole thing, because I know it was the talk while I was over there. So,
Yeah, I mean, I know for sure they approached Maxville School Board.
And I wouldn't
discuss it.
disagree if you're gonna do a bond, do it combined and maybe increase it and so,
No, it's just,
but
I don't know the inner workings of it. I just thought I'd throw
I'll say
that out
from
there.
a St. John standpoint, if we can improve our school and have a good facility, if those talks continue, you're more likely to have more things happening in St. John. And if my fear of a consolidation would be that the proposal would be to put it at the roundabout. And when you have all of your school facilities 3 miles outside of town, you lose a lot of life in town. And it's important to a small town to have activities in town. It's like a heartbeat, people coming in and out and seeing your town. And I don't know. So if we have a good facility in town that can be utilized, even if we consolidate, I think that's important too, personally. I don't think it's gonna go to waste if consolidation happens. But I can't predict the future either, so.
Well, that's something, consolidation is something that certain groups have fought for years, or at least as far as I know, ever since I was employed, started working at the school. So yeah, you never know.
Alright, that was a conversation stopper.
What's next, Bob?
Moving on, if nothing else under new business, I'd entertain a 20-minute executive session to discuss, unelected personnel.
You want the table? I make a motion to go into a 20-minute executive session to discuss non-elected personnel, to include everyone at the table, to return at 8:30.
Got a
Second.
motion on the table, here a second.
Second.
Second by Mark Bryant, motion was made by Aaron Gleason. Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? You for or against?
Wanna hit your growl?
Oh,
8:30.
call regular council meeting to order from executive session.
Make a motion to go back into executive session with everyone around the table for 15 minutes to resume at 8:45.
Got a motion on the table by Mark Bryant, second by Aaron Gleason, to be returned at 8:45. All in favor? All opposed? Passes 5-0. Back into regular council meeting out of executive session.
Can I have this back, please?
You want all of them?
No, yeah, the one is just in the executive.
Here, I'll give you all of them.
Yeah, please, Jim. Yep,
Carl's?
yep.
We're back in council meeting.
I'd make a motion to adjourn regular council meeting June 3rd, 2025.
Second.
Motion on the table by Aaron
Lisa?
Gleason, second by Aaron Raines. All in favor? All opposed?